Hello my fellow oddities, and before we even get started with the video, today is August 30th, 2022. Today is a very special day. You want to know why? 1 year ago, on this very day, I uploaded my first ever YouTube video. Time has really flown by, and I hadn't even realized it until just a few days ago on the 25th, where I got a Twitter notification that said, hey, your Twitter account is now a whole 1 year old, and I created my Twitter account just a few days before that first video, so I was like, dang. This has been the worst year of my life. No, I'm joking. Obviously, I'm kidding. This has been absolutely amazing, all thanks to you guys, and I cannot wait to see how this channel grows in the future. But enough of that, let's get into what you guys are actually here for. What inspired these Mortal Kombat characters, part 2, covering Mortal Kombat 2. If you haven't already seen the first one, then definitely make sure to. The link will be in the description as well as in the iCard in the top right corner. This is arguably, no, not even that. This is the most influential game in the entire series. It really made Mortal Kombat what it is and created the path that it has taken for the last 30 years. And this game was popular too. At one point, it was the highest selling video game of all time, and honestly, it was kind of crazy. People were breaking into the arcade machines and stealing the motherboards. Just insane. And the biggest part of Mortal Kombat 2's influence were the characters, both the returning ones from Mortal Kombat 1, a lot of which were revamped, mostly for the better, and also what we're gonna get into today, the new characters. Starting off with, well, actually not a new character, I just forgot him last time. Reptile. Oh, Reptile. I forgot about you last time, didn't I? I forgot that you were a hidden character in Mortal Kombat 1. Come on. How could I, man? Like, I'm a Mortal Kombat fan, and I guess my personal message to you, Reptile, is I have made a... I have made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment, and I don't expect to be forgiven. I just want to apologize. I'm not laughing. I'm actually crying. I'm so disappointed in myself. Yes, that's right. Reptile was a hidden character in Mortal Kombat 1. You couldn't play as him, but you could play against him. And the way to do this was honestly pretty simple. All you had to do was fight on the pit stage and have some stuff fly across the moon, then perform a double flawless victory without blocking and do a fatality. Keep in mind that you couldn't just look up the fatality combinations back then. Plus, this is an arcade, so there's probably a huge line of people also eagerly waiting to play after you. No biggie. But when you did get to fight him, he unfortunately was not a fully fleshed out character. He just took the moves of Scorpion and SubZero and called it a day. But that brings us to Mortal Kombat 2, where he is a fully unique character with his own moveset. Now, the concept of walking reptilian people was not a new one. Well, the concept of walking reptilian ninjas was probably a new one, but just the normal reptilian people? Nah, that's been in many fictional stories, folklore. You might even have some of them roaming around in our government. And now you have stopped watching what inspired these Mortal Kombat characters. Now you are watching a completely different video called Cool Facts About Reptiles. Reptile's fatality, where he snatches people's heads right off their bodies using his tongue, is inspired by some reptiles, mainly chameleons' ability to use their tongue to catch their prey that are far away. Speaking of chameleons, Reptile's ability to is mostly inspired by the predator, but also partly a chameleon's ability to change color to blend into their environment. Alright, let's come back. Oh god, what? No. Why can't I? No. Come on. Oh, thank god I'm back. Anyways, Reptile can spit acid that'll burn his opponent's skin off, and while there aren't any reptiles as far as I'm aware that are able to do all that, there are some reptiles that are able to spit venom, which is very, very poisonous and not too pleasant on the skin. And the final cool fact we have today is that Reptile is the first character in Mortal Kombat to have a blood color other than red, which is just magnificent for all the YouTubers that don't want to be demonetized. Now, there are some types of reptiles that have green blood, not a lot of them since most of them just have the standard red, but something else that I know about, and Trigger warning for anyone who might have hypochondria or, I don't know, a fear of medical conditions and stuff like that. There's actually a medical condition that will turn human blood, yes, you, me, human, blood, green. I first found out about it in a book I read in 7th grade. I get very queasy and sick at the thought of blood though, so I almost passed out while reading it. And that's it for Reptile. I'm sorry that I forgot about him in the last video. But you know what, so did the writers of Mortal Kombat 11, so come on, you gave them a pass, you can give me a pass as well.
That is up to her now.
What?
The throne is yours. You have united Outworld, Kitana Khan.
Now we're on to Kitana, the most popular female character in the series. In fact, Ed Boon himself once said that Kitana and Mileena are the Scorpion and SubZero of the female characters. And Kitana is going to be hard to cover here because she's one of those characters that's very watered down from her original inspirations to the point where she shares basically no similarities with them. So to find out what inspired Kitana, we're going to have to dig a little deeper, going into the early development of not Mortal Kombat 2, but actually the first Mortal Kombat, since that's where she was originally going to appear. In looking at this original sketch, it's a completely different character, completely different name, Kitsune, completely different design, which in my opinion is actually better than what we got, and a completely much worse story. Basically, originally she was supposed to be the daughter of Shang Tsung, not Shao Kahn, and the only reason she switched to the good side was because she fell in love with Liu Kang. Which I just don't like. I don't know about you guys, but I much prefer the one where she just kind of realizes, wait a second, this Shao Kahn, he's not that great of a guy. And I'm also not really sure what they were going for with the original name, Kitsune, because when I researched it, apparently Kitsune are paranormal foxes in Japanese mythology. And as far as I can tell, Kitana is not a fox. But I also heard it's just kind of like a common Japanese name, so maybe it's that, but Kitana is much cooler, of course, based off of the sword, katana, but with an I instead of an A. But getting into the design of this original katana, or Kitsune, I actually really like it. It's much more inspired by Japanese culture, and I'm a huge fan. Speaking of which, the only part of this original katana that carried over into the actual Mortal Kombat 2 were the fans. And these were actual Japanese weapons. I'm not really considering them real weapons because you don't really go into battle with them. They're more just to catch people off guard, like, oh, I just have this regular fan and now I'm gonna kill you! And from what I researched, no sane person's gonna go into a fight using these. But you know what? It's Mortal Kombat, so who cares? And when we get into the katana, we actually got different name, different design, much more plain one in my opinion, and a different story with her being the princess of Outworld and the daughter of Shao Kahn. Well, not the actual daughter because he killed her real father and took her. Yeah, not a great guy. So literally the only remnant of Kitana's past self are the fans. And hey, it's the most iconic part of the character, so Kitsune's got that going for her. Next up, we have the second half of the famous female duo of Mortal Kombat, Mileena. Oh god, I can smell her toxic fanbase already. I gotta get out of here. Mileena is a clone of Kitana that was genetically modified to have Tarkatan features, which is why she has the big, sharp, freakish teeth. And because she's the exact same as Kitana in every way besides her teeth, she is very insecure about it. This part of her character is all based on Kuchisake Onna. I think I'm saying that correctly, but I'm not sure. Who is a vengeful spirit, or Onryo, in Japanese urban legends and folklore. She was described as being beautiful, but she always wore a mask, and when she took it off, yeah, not a pleasant sight. And she basically went around to her victims and asked, am I pretty? And if they said no, then she would kill them. If they said yes, then she would take off the mask and be like, how about now? And if they said no, then she would kill them. And if they said yes, then she'd slit their mouth open, just like hers. So yeah, this all means that Mileena was actually based off of a ghost, which is kind of weird because she's not a character that you would think would be inspired by one of those. And Mileena also has her iconic weapons, the Sai, which are Okinawan, a subculture of Japan. And that also brings me to my next point. With these two characters, Kitana and Mileena, I've been talking a lot about how they're inspired by Japanese culture. So are the characters themselves Japanese? No. Well, no, kinda. They're very racially ambiguous characters. In the original Mortal Kombat 2, they were definitely not played by a Japanese actress. In fact, she was actually Cuban. But then again, Scorpion and SubZero were confirmed to be Japanese and Chinese, yet they were still played by white actors in the original trilogy, so I guess I can give them a pass. And then in the original Mortal Kombat 1995 movie, she was played by a Latino actress. But this also gets another pass because Scorpion and SubZero were also played by white actors in this movie. It was just kind of wrong. And then in the sequel to that movie, Mileena was played by a white actress. Which doesn't make any sense because her and Kitana are supposed to be clones, so I don't know what that's about. But then as the series went on, characters like Scorpion and SubZero progressively looked more Asian, while Kitana and Mileena basically stayed the same. And it's only in the most recent game, Mortal Kombat 11, that these characters actually look Asian, and it's not even Japanese because their face model is Filipino. And then right after that, in Mortal Kombat 2021, Mileena was played by a black actress, so again, these characters are very racially ambiguous, and I'm honestly not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because on one hand, if they're racially ambiguous, then there's a lot more flexibility with the character and different portrayals and what people can see in them. I think that could be pretty cool. But then on the other hand, having a character that's so inspired by Japanese mythology just not be Japanese and be a bunch of different stuff all throughout the entire series is also just kind of strange. I don't know, I'll leave it to you guys. What do you think?
Baraka!
Okay. Nice makeup. But is it really necessary?
Whoa! They will taste your flesh.
Next up, we have the man who has the honor to hold the title of the main jobber of Mortal Kombat. Of course, I am talking about Baraka. Baraka is a part of and the general of a race in Outworld called the Tarkatans. They're these savage, barbaric, demon warriors. Well, actually, I'm not sure about that last part. It's been a while since anyone's actually mentioned the fact that Baraka is supposed to be half demon, so I'm not sure if it's still a thing anymore. Wouldn't be the first time with this series. Now, like Kitana, I'm going to go into the early stages of development with Baraka because he was also supposed to be in the original Mortal Kombat. Like Kitana, Baraka originally had a completely different name. He was named Rakuro. This is a Japanese name that means sixth son. Maybe that would have had something to do with his character back then. I don't think it has anything to do with him now. I don't know. And the name Baraka I couldn't find much on, but apparently it means white one. Okay. And looking at his original design, this is nothing like what we actually got, even more so than Kitana. Instead of being a savage beast warrior, he is a ninja with hook swords. Hook swords are weapons of Chinese origins, and they would become a much more iconic part of a completely different character later down the line. Of course, I'm talking about Movado. No, I'm joking, it's Cabal. But eventually, all of this was changed out to get the Baraka we know and love today. No. The Baraka we know today. Now, the first thing you probably want to know about Baraka are those giant swords that stick out of his hands. And it turns out that Ed Boon and John Tobias are actually huge Marvel fans because they're inspired by Wolverine's claws. But while Wolverine's got these teensy-weensy little things, Baraka's got these big old things. If you know what movie that's from, say it in the comments. But what about the rest of his design? Well, his actual outfit is pretty generic. There's not really much to talk about there. But his head with the iconic sharp teeth is actually based off of Nosferatu. Well, sort of. The design was already made up, but they needed something for the actor to wear over their head to represent Baraka while they were shooting for Mortal Kombat 2. And so what they did is buy a Nosferatu Halloween mask and paste long fake nails on it to represent the teeth. And putting this all together, this created the iconic Baraka that we got in Mortal Kombat 2. Last thing I want to mention, this isn't really what inspired Baraka, but instead, what Baraka inspired himself. I am 99.9% sure that the inspiration for Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine was Baraka. Come on, you can't deny the similarities. And plus, in Mortal Kombat 2, there was a stage called the Deadpool, so that's fitting.
Jax, there is no need. Just stop it.
It's good to be back.
Oh yeah, now we got the all-American soldier, Jax Briggs.
Done 6 tours, motherfucker.
A few moments later.
Stands for truth and justice. Keeps that American flag in his back pocket at all times.
Jax wins.
And of course, how could I forget the true sign of an American? He shoots people. A lot. But guns aren't gonna get you anywhere in Mortal Kombat. Why? Yeah, I think that about sums it up. So Jax is gonna have to up his game. He can't just be a regular soldier. What can he do to be on the level of all these other fighters? Get metal arms. That's what he can do. Now Jax, like Sonya, doesn't really have a lot of inspirations. I'm guessing it's just the soldier characters are kind of straightforward. But looking back on it, if I had to choose someone as Jax's inspiration, it would be Carl Weathers, specifically him from the Predator movie. He's this super buff soldier who even gets one of his arms blasted off at one point. And I think what makes his inspiration the most obvious is the fact that in Mortal Kombat X, when the Predator came to the game, Jax also got a skin that turned him into Carl Weathers. Like, voice and all.
I'm locked and loaded.
Only cowards use firearms.
But spitting on people's okay.
You son of a bitch.
But other than that, Jax doesn't really have any inspirations that are clear to me. Even his metal arms are just kind of there. And now we have... You know what? I'll let him introduce himself.
The name is Kung Lao, descendant of the great Kung Lao, the grand champion of the Order of Light.
As he just said, Kung Lao is the descendant of the great Kung Lao, who was the champion of Mortal Kombat before being killed by Goro. And so Kung Lao has a lot of ancestral pride and wants to prove himself as the next champion of Mortal Kombat, which he sadly never became. Yeah, Kung Lao is a second fiddle to Liu Kang, the true hero of Mortal Kombat. He is the Mario to Chris Pratt's Luigi. What did I just say? He is the Luigi to Liu Kang's Mario, and he really doesn't deserve that title because he is a cool character in his own right. But people aren't gonna see you as a cool character if you die all the time. Yes, Kung Lao is the character in Mortal Kombat, that one guy who is just always dying. This man has died like 7 or 8 times, which is just insane for one of the main heroes. It's getting to the point where people are picking their favorite Kung Lao death. You might be wondering, what's my favorite Kung Lao death? Well, it should be pretty obvious by now if you've been a longtime fan.
He's about to get his soul sucked.
Usually the only reason Kung Lao dies is just to motivate Liu Kang so that he can step up and beat Shang Tsung or Shao Kahn or whatever big bad of the week it is. Because Kung Lao and Liu Kang are best friends, they both grow up as Shaolin monks together at the temple. But some things Shaolin monks don't usually use in combat are razor-rimmed hats. I'm fairly certain weapons of this type do not exist, but Kung Lao's hat is actually based off of a James Bond villain called Oddjob, who had a similar hat that could be thrown and like chop people's heads off. It was pretty cool. But of course, Kung Lao's hat is way cooler. It's bigger, more flashy. He can go, sing. And he uses it to perform some of the goriest fatalities in the entire series. While there are some characters that are known for having like 1 or 2 really disgusting fatalities, Kung Lao across the entire series has like a lot. Even in the 2021 movie, all you gotta do is listen to the audio and you know, it is the grossest fatality out of all of them in the movie.
Flawless victory.
I don't know how to end off Kung Lao's section of the video, so... Fun fact, this symbol on his outfit is actually Chinese for war. That's cool. Alright, we're finished with all of the playable characters from Mortal Kombat 2. Now we're on to some of the hidden ones, starting off with Smoke.
Smoke is dead. I am an Enra.
Jeez, okay. Sorry, Smoke is dead. You're an Enra now. I get it. Now, an Enra is a monster in Japanese mythology made up only of darkness and the main thing we're going to focus on here, smoke. And Enras are normally depicted as either demons or people that have been resurrected from the dead and transformed into an Enra. I just love saying that. And a Nenra. Just a fun word to say. And Smoke seems to be the latter, especially after he becomes a Revenant and just claims to be a Nenra. Even if technically he's always been in a Nenra. Now Smoke throughout the series takes two forms, one as a cyborg and one as a human. We're going to be talking about the human one here because that's the one that appeared in Mortal Kombat 2 as a hidden character. Basically all you had to do to fight him was uppercut someone, wait for the toasty thing to appear, and then hold down and start, and you fight Smoke. Way easier than Reptile. And like Reptile, I'm pretty sure his moveset wasn't even a combination of Scorpion and SubZero. I'm pretty sure it was just Scorpion. Which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because Smoke is actually a part of the same clan as SubZero. And Smoke, whose actual name is Thomas Verbata, is one of the more ethnically diverse characters in the series as he's from the Czech Republic. Prague to be specific, which is pretty neat, even though it has like nothing to do with this character. But, you know, it doesn't have to. People can be a certain race or ethnicity without it being like a huge central part of them. Honestly, I'm just glad this lets us know that there's more countries out there in this universe besides Japan, China, and the US. And that's pretty much it for Human Smoke. He is a super underdeveloped character. The cyborg version of him is like the main version of him in the games. Like, he's only been human, I want to say 3 times, maybe 4, and only one of those times was he actually playable, like, in a canon appearance. Mortal Kombat 9 is really all we have to go off of, and it's the NetherRealm Studios writing team, so I'll leave it at that. Now we have Kitana's personal bodyguard, Jade, another hidden character. And the way to play against her is by winning a whole round only using kicks, which is harder than you might think. So the first and biggest thing that I want to mention with Jade is that she's actually the first black woman to ever appear in a fighting game, which is just awesome. Like, round of applause to Ed Boon, John Tobias, Midway, all the people involved. You did great. She's definitely not a character like Kitana or Mileena where you can switch around the race and just expect people not to care. Now obviously her name is based off of the mineral Jade for its green color because Jade is also green. Well, the character, not the mineral. I'm talking about two different things here. Okay, Jade, the character, Jade, the mineral. They're both green. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Moving on to her weapon, she has the bow staff, which I'm pretty sure a whole bunch of cultures could come up with a long stick. So I'm pretty sure a bunch of them probably have this type of staff, but the specific staff that she uses, a bow staff, comes from Okinawa culture, just like Mileena's size. But her staff is always changing. In the first few games she appeared in, it was just kind of metal, just long metal stick. Then as it progressed, it became more complicated, and then in Mortal Kombat 9, it went back to being just a long stick, but this time it was glowing purple, which was awesome, and then in Mortal Kombat 11, they made it worse by having it glow green instead. Lame. And then of course she has her Razorang, which are based off of boomerangs that have the 3 blades instead of just the 2 that most people know. Boomerangs are Australian hunting weapons as well as kids' toys. Kinda weird that it can be those 2 things at once.
You are not worthy of the name SubZero.
Who are you to judge?
I wore those colors before you.
Bihan?
Yes, Kuai Liang. It is I. Quan Chi restored me.
Restored. You and I both. We are flawed copies of our former selves.
I have no flaws. Quan Chi has perfected me.
For what end? To serve the Netherrealm and Outworld?
It suits my purpose.
But brother,
We share blood. We are not brothers.
Can you guys tell that I'm excited for this one? Can you? Can you tell? Can you guys tell yet that I'm excited for this next character? Do you know who this is? This is the best character in all of Mortal Kombat. You better know who this is. This is Noob Saibot. Noob Saibot is my favorite fiction. You know what? Not even. Noob Saibot is my favorite person of all time. To all my friends and family that may be watching this, that was a joke. I do not, in fact, like a murderous, sociopathic, shadowy wraith more than you. I mean, he's still pretty up there. So there might be like 2 or 3 of you that I like less than. No, I'm joking, of course. Kinda. Sorta. Noob Saibot is another hidden character in Mortal Kombat 2, and to play against him, you have to win 25 fights in a row. And Noob Saibot was, of course, in Mortal Kombat 1. Besides, he wasn't Noob Saibot yet, he was the original SubZero, Bihan. So why the change? Well, at the end of Mortal Kombat 1, SubZero was getting a bit toasty. And so he was resurrected as a wraith, an undead entity of shadow and darkness. But so why the name change? Why did he change his name from SubZero or Bihan to Noob Saibot? Seems kind of random. Well, if you're asking that in Story of the Universe, then I have no idea, but in the real world, it does have a very special meaning. The name Noob Saibot comes from the two co-creators of Mortal Kombat, Ed Boon and John Tobias. You take their last names, Boon and Tobias, reverse them, and you got Noob Saibot. Good thing that their names backwards could actually be said by a human being, and it's not just like a jumble of letters or something. Now, despite being a wraith, Noob Saibot actually doesn't really share that many similarities with how wraiths are normally depicted. Mortal Kombat is pretty much the only instance where wraiths have pitch black skin and glowing white eyes. Just like specters, wraiths are normally just depicted as ghosts. Boring. Instead, I'd say Noob Saibot shares more similarities with the Grim Reaper. I mean, he's not like a skeleton or anything, but you know, he kind of looks like one sometimes. But they're both these shadowy personifications of death. It's basically the Grim Reaper if he were a ninja, which is just an awesome thought. And of course, Noob Saibot can summon a clone. In fact, Noob Saibot's name is actually not Noob Saibot, it's just Noob. His clone is named Saibot, and he summons him whenever he's feeling lonely, because he has no friends.
Noob Saibot, wait.
Since Noob Saibot can control shadows, he can technically control his own shadow, which is what Saibot is. And despite not being depicted as a typical wraith, basically just a ghost, he does have a move that's called Ghost Ball, where if it hits the opponent, they're not able to block for like a few seconds. The only thing with Noob Saibot's powers I'm not too sure about are the portals. Don't know what that's about, but they're still cool. And Noob Saibot also, like Reptile, has a different color of blood other than red. Well, when he's cool he does. When he's not, he just has the standard red. Boring. And I wonder, what could the color of Noob Saibot's blood possibly be? I'm really stumped on this. I'm truly not sure. I mean, just look at him. For all I know, it could be any color under the rainbow. Pink, orange, it could even be gold. Wait, what? Noob Saibot's blood it's black? I could have never guessed. Now we have the sub-boss of Mortal Kombat 2, Kanotaro. Now Kantaro's inspiration, more than anything, is kinda lame, but it is what it is Goro from the last game. Originally, Kanotaro, which is a name in Japanese mythology by the way, was supposed to be a Kung Fu Panda character? Basically a bipedal tiger martial artist, which would have been really, really weird. But I guess it makes sense because in Chinese mythology, tigers are said to be very, very powerful creatures. But if they went with this, then they would have to make a suit for an actor to wear, and they just didn't want to do that, so they reused the stop motion that they used for Goro in the last game, and reused it for Kanotaro, and just made him Goro, but he's a furry now. And the in-game explanation for this is that Kanotaro is a part of the same species as Goro, but there was a gene deviation that made him have the tiger skin. And I guess part of that gene deviation was also being able to breathe fire, which is like the one thing Kanotaro has over Goro. Being able to breathe fire is really cool. In fact, because of this ability, in the new timeline, Kanotaro was the one that turned Cabal into the lovable walking inhaler that he is today.
Ball win.
And yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, but that's really all I have to say about Kanotaro, because he's mostly just a ripoff of Goro from the last game, but he's a tiger now.
Witless boy, do you know who I am?
The murderer of my friend.
I am Shao Kahn, conqueror of worlds. You will taste no victory.
And for the final character we'll be talking about today, you know who it is. It's the big bad of Mortal Kombat, the man himself, Shao Kahn. The tyrannical dictator and ruler of Outworld who wants to merge with Earthrealm, who wants to conquer all that exists in the universe, multiverse, however big it is. Now Shao Kahn, when it comes to design, is mostly an original character. The only thing that I can really discern is the helmet looking very similar to samurai helmets. Getting into the weapons, of course, he has the iconic Warhammer with the little Mortal Kombat logo on it. It's awesome. Now I couldn't really find any hammers that looked exactly like this, but there is such thing as a Warhammer. They were used by Middle Eastern knights, stuff like that. And then of course he has the spear, which is just a general weapon that many different cultures and militaries have used over the years. I mean, it was used in prehistoric times, come on. And lastly, there's Kahn himself. Quite literally, because we're talking about the name Kahn. And the name's definitely fitting for Shao, as it's most associated with warlords like Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan. And then there's also the Star Trek Khan, but I probably have no reason to bring him up. I don't think he's relevant at all in this conversation. Those are his most obvious inspirations, but Shao is the dictator of dictators. There are many leaders from ancient history that he can be compared to, and he was even compared to a modern leader quite recently in Mortal Kombat 11 to very cringy results.
Let us make Outworld great again.
And I think with that, we're gonna end off today's video. What a way to go. But before anyone leaves, there's one more thing. And now a taste of things to come.
Victory is mine, Shaman.
If I take it from you.
Cabal is down. Third degree burns. What the?
If you like this video and you want to watch my future content, make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell turned on. And if you want to see a part 3 to this video covering Mortal Kombat 3, then definitely make sure to give it a like. And with that being said, that's it for this video, my fellow oddities. I'll see you next time.